So I will talk about security automation and DevSecOps. And before I jump into the presentation, does anybody know DevOps? Anyone here? No? Good. So I'm in the right place. So honestly, the one thing I want to say before I really start is that as a security person, I hated DevOps and Agile. All of that was, for me, was devil kind work, so because security usually was not part of that. So before we start, I have that picture of the past. Do you know what this is? That's a waterfall. You might not know that, but that's the old-fashioned way of doing projects, doing waterfall projects. So waterfall projects have something very good from a security perspective. You shoot in your requirements in the beginning as a CISO. You say you have to do it like that. Then you wait hundreds of milestones. 1.5 years later, the product is finished, and then you just check it. So it was an easy job for me. So you have, that's not real continuous delivery and stuff. It's an easy way. And I would say that 99% of all CISOs still live in that world. The security industry is mainly driven by banking industry, where all the money is, and they are far away from anything that has to do with Agile or DevOps or continuous delivery. They are still in a waterfall world. So the security industry is waterfall, purely waterfall. And if you then look, what can I do to bring security into Agile environments? Usually there's nothing. You don't find the experts talking about DevSecOps. There are a couple of them, but not in Europe. Not in Switzerland, not Germany, not the DACH region. If you go a little bit abroad, so in UK, and especially also Israel and USA, you find a couple of them. But there is not much there. So, but it's important. So, if you would think that we have now moved from waterfall years ago, now we do DevOps, everything Agile, things should become better. But if I look at our numbers at Tamedia, so we collect a couple of numbers from everywhere, it still has not changed. So we have at the moment around 2 days between incidents. So it's not business days, it's weekdays. So we have a couple of incidents that, and the number is increasing. The second thing is we do audits. So usually we don't announce the audit so that you can be prepared. We just do that. And usually we find cross-site scripting vulnerabilities or SQL or SQL. So officially it's pronounced SQL, not SQL. We looked that up. So it's SQL, injection vulnerabilities, and this is something from the past. Shouldn't be there. You have frameworks and stuff, shouldn't be there, but it's everywhere. In every audit we find that. Yeah?
I think the mic is not good enough or something. Yeah, it's very hard to hear you.
So I shall be louder.
A little bit.
A little bit louder, good. So I'll try that. So that mic is not for you, it's for the recording. So if I use that one, it really sounds ugly. So SQL injection vulnerabilities should be something from the past. It shouldn't be there, but it's everywhere, in every audit. If we look at the passwords, if you name your company name, I will most likely find the password. Not you use, but somewhere in your code it might be used. So these are typical failures that are still in there. So, and then the last thing is we have attacks almost every month. Every month we have attacks against websites, web services, against companies we have. After that talk, we will have a little talk about a company that has been attacked. So there you will hear how it feels like being attacked. But we have that all the time. So attacks are increasing, things are not getting away. So bringing security into DevOps is important. So it's a need that we have. I'm looking into all that Agile development methodologies for a long time now. And there are official frameworks how to do Agile in enterprises. So for example, the LESS framework is a very good one. So it more or less tries to explain how to do Scrum in a large scale for enterprises. So Scrum more or less is usually the basis. You can then use less if you scale up to 10 or 100,000 of employees. You can use the Spotify model. But if you then make a deep dive into it, you find architects, product owners, product managers, stakeholders, everything. You find no security guy in there. It's inexistent. So I tried to extend that, but I didn't want to call it less security. It's a funny name, would fit, but I didn't want to do that. So let's skip that framework. There's a second one, confusing. So it doesn't look agile, by the way. It's confusing, but it's a SAFe framework. That's the scalable agile framework for lean enterprises. Doesn't look lean at all, but it's more or less the most common framework you use today if you want to implement agile, for example, at SBB or other large enterprises. So again, you have a couple of people in there, the system architect, the engineer. You find no security guy in there, so you have a SAFe framework, but it's unsecure. You don't have security in it. So let's also skip that one. I looked it up. There is only one framework. It's called the Disciplined Agile Framework, and no one is using that. Even the website is usually down, so no one is using that. That's the only one that really cares of security. So now I mocked that up. I thought, okay, security feels left behind in the switch, in the transformation from waterfall to agile. So I looked the movie up. Does anybody know that movie? No? There's a reason, because it has an IMDb rating of 3.1 stars. It's really the worst movie you can find in the world. It really sucks, but it represents the security state today. If you look at DevOps and stuff, there are reasons for that. So I tried to mock that up in there, so you have the IT security guy, however you call that, but usually you are left behind. If you now go to what, I wouldn't say that security influencers, this is inexistent. Security guys don't use Instagram and stuff, but if they would exist, they would say that security is doing it wrong. The security guys like me, and I hated agile in the past, they are just doing it wrong. You have to turn your mindset to a more agile friendly mindset, embrace it, and bring security into DevOps. So to do that, you have to shift left. So I just tried to find a picture, but shift left, if you just use that, it could also be shift right. So I had to write it like that. Security today is on the right side. It's on the production side. Where you are in production, there security today is, I'm looking at incidents, breaches. That's where all the, let's say, shit is happening. But I'm not looking, or the security is not looking at the beginning, the development, the requirements and stuff, how to implement security from the beginning on. There is now the GDPR, you might have heard of that, privacy stuff. It's not really security, there is a difference between it, but they call it privacy by design. And I'm looking for security by design. So if you write good code, you don't need a web application firewall and stuff in the end. That's very expensive. So the question is, why don't we have good code? So that's why I now will try to make a deep dive. I wouldn't say how to do that. I will just touch the surface for things you can do. We could make a deep dive for every single step and discuss that for hours. But it's really just touching the beginning. So what I try to draft here is a simplified, maybe not completely correct CI/CD pipeline. So who is delivering continuously? That's good. And what does that mean? Daily? Is anybody doing that daily? Okay, that's good. Weekly? More times a day? So 4 times a day, for example. Okay, so that's good. That's awesome. So one problem you have in security, if I do an audit, I know that if you deliver 4 times a day, that 2.5 hours later, it might look differently. So it's the one-time snapshot is just an invalid snapshot. So you would need to do that continuously. So we need to adapt security being continuously integrated in your whole life cycle, in the integration and deployment life cycle and the development. That is what is usually missing today, that is not integrated in that. So usually if someone calls me, it's not that they say, wow, Andy, now I have a good idea, let's integrate that in our CI/CD pipeline. They are just running around like chickens, say, oh, something happened, we are breached. That's where you call usually the security guy. And the tools from the attackers, they don't change. They are agile and unagile, so they just have a couple of tools. For years now, they have not changed the tools. The attacks are getting more sophisticated, but usually if something happens, you call for help. And that's usually dollars. So you need more or less time and money to fix that very quick. And this is usually very expensive. So fixing could mean, oh, your whole architecture is completely wrong. You should redo your architecture. So throw away everything you have done. That's not possible. So you try to fix and do workarounds, and there will be always wrong. And with the next delivery, maybe your workaround is not working anymore. You have to redo the workaround all the time. So this is one of the problems if you have security on the right side. So like I said, security needs to shift left. To go to the beginning, I added to that pipeline the developer and his computer. They are very important in that because in the end it's people who write code, it's not machines. And it's done on computers from the developers. That usually belong to the developer, and who's developer in the room? Who has a Tamedia corporate computer? Okay, 2 out of the full room. So you care, you are the CISO on your own, so you care about your security by yourself. That's good. So you are all CISOs, but that's one of the key issues that developers, they have their own computer, so security guys concentrate on the corporate stuff, but the whole development, even the computers, are left out. So you don't look at anything at all. So if you look at the beginning, what you can do, as we find SQL injection vulnerabilities and cross-site scripting, you can do trainings. We offer that at Tamedia. We have done 3, you could say, POCs for developer training where you learn how to hack. So you learn how to write and use SQL injection, cross-site scripting. If you have done that a couple of times and exploited that, you know how to write code that is not vulnerable to that. So this is, for example, one thing. And Harry is not here, but he will talk about that at the end of the conference. There is a TX Academy. And within the TX Academy, there is a technology stream, and in there's the hacking lab. The hacking lab tries to focus exactly on that. So if you're interested, just let me know afterwards. I will organize trainings, so it's one-day training to look at vulnerabilities, to code and exploit stuff. And use tools like, I call it SQL map, but it should be SQL map. That Renovero will show later on what can be done with that. It's an awesome tool, by the way. The second thing is, on computers, so your own managed computers, or not the Tamedia corporate computers, even on every computer, Linux, macOS, or whatever you have, you need some kind of protection on it. We use at Tamedia an Israeli solution. It's really fantastic. It has machine learning in it, and it's not disruptive like you have with traditional antivirus, but we detect if someone is in your computer, and we can then easily just stop the process. So this is a very good solution we have that we provide for everyone. So for every company we have in Tamedia, we provide it for more or less free. Then let's go to the code. Here, that's in the end, if you have done the presentation, you can click and make a deep dive to that. So I'm just touching that. If you, for example, have, if you're writing your code in your IDE, there are solutions available to write secure code. It's traditionally you say it's SAST, so static application security testing, but there are tools in there, depending how you code it, that can help you write good code. So there are commercial tools like checkmarks, for example. During writing, they precompile that to some language and then reflect to you directly that you have done some injection vulnerability in your code during coding. So this is something that gives you direct feedback, and as this feedback is very annoying, if you write shit, I would say it like that you will be reflected, hey, guy, or not just guy, but usually guys, you write like shit. At a certain point, you won't write like that, and then you have learned. From there on, you will never do that again. So there are good solutions available. Sadly, only one Swiss solution is here, deep code. So it's JavaScript and Java. If you are doing everything open source, you can use it for free. There are other open source tools available, but these you should do from the beginning on. It's difficult to implement that automatically so that you can still deliver continuously. So you will see a couple of tools I will show. It's not meant that you have to pick everything. But if you just pick one or two of them and integrate them in your CI/CD pipeline, you can still continuously deliver your product, but you will be much safer. And I can sleep well because it will be security built in. I don't have to tell it to you. You will be sure that it is like that. By the way, SonarQube is the most well-known open source tool. It's quite mature. Is anybody using GitLab? Fantastic. Before you pick a couple of commercial tools, look at the GitLab Gold and Platinum edition. It's a paid edition, but there you have a complete security within the CI/CD pipeline integrated. So it might be, from a commercial perspective, could make much more sense going to that premium license rather than buying a couple of tools. And they are completely integrated into GitLab. So this is really fantastic. So GitLab is riding that security wave right now. So they are trying to enter that market. Then you have here something you usually find is that attacks are happening via outdated libraries. So all the coin mining stuff that is happening out there, usually they come with outdated libraries that are taken over. And there are little checks that can be done, automated, that's really just a command line script, run it, and then you know that all your libraries you have are updated and are not outdated. That's very important. These tools here, they do the same. So you can switch them a little bit. Then there's a cool tool available, it's called Trufflehawk. So the Trufflehawk, that's the pig looking for the truffle. So Trufflehawk is a tool built, it's also open source, finding secrets in your code. What we usually find in audits is that the apps, they have some, let's say, hard-coded secret in it, so an API access key or something going to the production. And the auditors always find that. It's not hidden because it's an app on an iPhone. It can easily be retrieved. And Trufflehawk just finds these secrets, also passwords, and they just reflect it back. That's an error in it. So it can be easily automated, and it's also in that GitLab CI/CD stuff. So if you have GitLab, you're already on an awesome way. GitHub, on the other side, they also try to do more for security, and they have now a GitHub Security alert. There they just also do dependency check. They check your code, what you have included, and then you are good. If you would do all of that, if we skip all the rest that is coming, if you just do that, you're quite secure. You won't have many SQL injection vulnerabilities, cross-site skipping and stuff at the end. The problem is that usually you don't have that in your legacy, but for the new stuff you build, if you do that, you will have built-in security. And you have to spend zero invest for that. You just have to do that and try to integrate it and automate it in the beginning. Then you are more or less fine. Now let's go to the more complicated stuff, and there are more awesome things you can do. And please, I have written it with unit tests and integration tests. It's just of the spacing. I can't put it in the right position. It also depends on where you are. Yes, a question?
Just a question about automatic library updates.
Yeah.
I mean, we cannot guarantee that they are all backward compatible and that our software will continue working if we are doing that automatically without.
Yeah, that's true. So that's if you have to upgrade your libraries all the time, of course you have to have the correct testing if your application is still running. So that's more or less what you have to do somewhere here or here, writing the valid tests for that if your application is still working or your code you're committing is still working correctly. So this is connected, of course. In the end, the best thing you can have is that you have the security as unit tests or integration tests somewhere completely integrated so that you avoid that something can be committed that is unsecure. But you can already do a lot here. Avoid that tests are failing and stuff because it gets really complicated and you don't want to have too much delay in there. Again, you can use tools like these secure code tools that you can also do tests with that. You can automate that. They are able to do little tests of your code there if it's still good or not. Something I really like to do, but it's handwork, it's you write the abuse tests by yourself. There are lists available like SQL injection cheat sheet. So every form of SQL injection, you can find there how this is done, and of course you can script it and run it against your code. So then you can make sure that no SQL injection can be found. You can also use, for example, SQL map in there to really test your code. Naughty strings, that's just naughty strings. Things you don't see and feel, but they are just naughty, they break your application. You can use that string list and just let it run against your application. Of course, you have to do it by your own. And then there are chaos tests. So who knows chaos engineering? Okay, just a few. Who knows Netflix? Was just a test. But who knows the security monkeys? Okay, a couple of them. So the security monkeys mean that you intentionally break your stuff. If I say I'm your security monkey, I will shut down randomly all your virtual machines or your services or your processes. You have to rethink how to build your application because it must run all the time even if something is down. This is built-in business continuity here. You can do that here. So there is a tool available like Proxy, where you can inject latency or your database is not responding. You can do all that little tests in there, and most of that stuff is open source. You can just grab it, try it out, and write your own tests against your code. This is really fantastic. I have to speed up. The next thing is if you have AWS, but we have everything. So Tamedia is with the multi-cloud company. We have all the cloud companies that are there. But there is a tool like CS Suite that consists of a couple of other open source tools where you can scan your environment. So the most difficult thing on AWS are the IAM roles. No one gets that correct. That's a physics thing. So this is checking your settings and just reflecting to you on the command line interface. It's a Python tool, more or less saying to you, this is shit. This is really dangerous. So all these tools just do it like that. You can also have a JSON file, XML file, and they rely on Prowler. Prowler is also just a test script. And it just runs a couple of seconds. Then it's finished. You can run that every time and then find the most obvious flaws. Then there's a tool called Gauntlet, also open source, that is just it's done for integration tests. It's just for integration tests. It's automating other tools just to put it into an integration test and let it run during a CI/CD pipeline. Then you have web app scans, so that is touching your application surface to find typical cross-site scripting or SQL injection vulnerabilities. So this is again open source. Here you have Arachne. W3AF is also good, but they have a shitty website. So, and that's why I don't use it, so I use Arachne, it's just better. W3AF doesn't use HTTPS, and I don't trust it anymore. By the way, again, if you have GitLab, they have it integrated in their CI/CD pipeline. They use the same tools, so you can just upgrade to premium and relax. And if you have Docker or Kubernetes in your environment, so most of you might have that, you can use Kubebench or Docker Benchmark to automate more or less that. It's also scanning your Docker configuration, or it's scanning your Kubernetes environment and finding vulnerabilities in there. So like outdated stuff, wrong settings. And if you do just that, if you leave out that part and you do just that, you're also good. The last part is the most expensive part. So this is something usually I have to do, and this is expensive and not very sustainable, because every time you release a new product, everything changes for me. So this is the last thing you should do, and that's the web application firewall. If you apply a web application firewall, it's the first thing you think, this will protect me. But if you deploy continuously a couple of times a day, you have to reconfigure that and test it if it's still running. The reality is people think the WAF is helping, corporate is helping me, they paid, let's deploy a WAF, we are fine. Then you realize, oh, I can't use my web application anymore, so you have to reconfigure it. You put efforts in it, and in the end you just bypass it or you shut it off. And the corporate guy like me says, they have a WAF, they are protected. The reality is no one uses it. So this is, again, something very important for me. From a security perspective, I can put a WAF there because I don't trust the developers. If I remove the WAF, I say, you will be victim of attacks. Then you will think about how you write your code. If you are in a safe haven and think, yeah, there's the web application firewall that will protect me, I can do lazy code and stuff, this is not working if you remove that. So from an education perspective, I would remove that. But we have a couple of them in Tamedia. We do audits. We won't say when we audit you, but you will then, maybe you will see it or not. That's then an interesting finding, but we want to transform that more into a bug bounty program, so that we say to the outside, let's take, for example, 20 minutes, attack us. If you find something, you get something. We found something, for example, at JobCloud, it was last year, within a bug bounty program, and the bounty was €100. And I thought, oh, wow, that's expensive. Usually an audit costs 20,000, so I'm happy to pay 10 times €100 if we really find vulnerabilities. That's quite a good thing. Then we have a running security operations center that is collecting audit logs, so CloudTrail logs and infrastructure logs, and with that we see if something malicious is happening. You should do that because we can then alert you that something is happening. This is a good thing, but it's not protecting you. It's just providing you insights for reacting faster. That's the good thing about it. Threat intel, I'll skip that. You can do many things. If you're really awesome, you have done all that, you can use honey tokens, like Space Crab. I love that. It creates thousands of Lambda functions that then act as a honeypot. So with AWS access keys and stuff. So the attacker then is inside and thinks, oh, I'll go to the left. And then he's just hitting a honeypot. He goes to the right and then again hitting. With that, that's an old way doing that, but with that you find usually intruders. And this is the chaos stuff. Chaos testing is then, if you don't want to do it here, if you have the guts to do that in production, then you are good, so you just shoot out your production. There is, for example, from Netflix, there's a Chaos Kong that is completely killing your region. Because that happens, that a complete region is out. So if you really want to be bold, you do that. Who's from Bavaria? Anybody? There is a tool available called Krampus. Krampus is the Bavarian Schmutzli. So the Schmutzli for the Swiss Germans. So he's hitting production. So if you really want to be very bold, you use Krampus because he's just really doing it randomly. So killing all your production. So to summarize it, this is just everything I more or less a tool collection you can use. The important thing is don't start from the right. Go to the left. Shift everything to the left and start from the left side. Try the easy things that you really think could be automated quickly. And it will look differently for every one of you. But the important thing is if you want to do that, you can talk to me. So you can talk to me or to Olivier, he's sitting here. If you really want to do DevSecOps, talk to me and I can help you, or we can bring together other Tamedia companies that are already doing that. So then you will have a much more secure environment in the end. Good. I had to rush through. 30 minutes are over. Any questions? Yep.
Where can we find the slide with all the tools?
Okay. I don't know. The slides will be published somewhere internally. I'm not sure if we have a Slack channel, but there is the Tech Security Slack channel within the Tamedia Slack, and I will post the slides there for sure. So you will find it. It's tech_security, and otherwise there will be all the slides, I guess, available as well as the live talk stuff. Yeah. Another question was there?
Thank you for the talk. It was very informative. I had exactly the same question to how to get, because a lot of keywords, a lot of terms which are not known by the developer. And probably I would have another follow-up question is, do you organize any workshops regarding those topics?
Yes, but usually we had that, we started with a couple of companies where we did the audits in the beginning, and then we have an informal way of doing that. So, for example, with a couple of HomeGate colleagues, we had a security coffee for a long time. With Doodle colleagues, I have a completely other setup. And so it's just the way you like it. Usually, I then go into the companies and do a tech talk. I've done that a couple of times where you have all the developers in there, and I just do that kind of tech talk, what things we want to do at Tamedia, what I can bring you as a value, and then we discuss how to do that and find the right format. I plan to bring together all the security interested people, but right now it's still a little bit early, but I plan that to spot the right people in there. Yep. Nothing else? Over. Time is over. Good. So thank you.